Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to be talking about my picks for the top 10 best Planeswalkers in EDH. So normally Planeswalkers are considered one of the worst card types in EDH because it's a lot harder for a Planeswalker to be able to be good in a multiplayer format. But today I'm going to be talking about my picks for which Planeswalkers are the best in the 99, so this list isn't going to be filled just with things like Jessica and Tezzeret. And this list also works for both regular casual EDH and for CEDH, because these are the ones that just generally work better in the Commander format in general. But without further ado, let's get into the list. Starting off with number 10, we have Lukka the Coppercoat Outcast. The most relevant piece of text on this card is the number 2, which exiles a creature you control and then flips you into something that's bigger than whatever you exiled. So the general strategy with this card is that you have your creature mana curve stop at somewhere like 3 or 4, and then the only other creatures that are higher CMC is some sort of game ender that you can use Lukka to just search into. So say you sack a Eternal Witness and it flips you into a Crater Hoof or a Razakath. Something that, if you hit, is probably just going to end the game. And that's why you play this card. Up next, we have Ashiok the Dreamrender at number 9. So Ashiok is a low-cost planeswalker that prevents opponents from using their tutor effects. Also works as graveyard hate for all your opponents with the -1 ability, which also mills, which can sometimes exile something relevant. And it's pretty easy to cast with its hybrid mana. So overall, a pretty decent planeswalker. Up next is number 8, Kasmina the Enigma Sage. Kasmina gives planeswalkers you control all of her loyalty abilities in addition to the abilities they already have. So this card is very good for giving planeswalkers an even bigger plus than they normally would have to get them to quick ults, or it can give pluses to planeswalkers that normally don't have a plus, such as all of the uncommon walkers from War of the Spark. Another good part about this card is that it can also convert loyalty to creatures on board with the -X ability, making blue-green fractal tokens. So, even if you're a planeswalker heavy deck, you can still put a lot of defenders on board to keep your planeswalkers safe. And finally, and probably one of the most important aspects of this card, is that Ultimate can be used to search game-ending spells. The place that this card sees some amount of play in is Teferi's list, which can then use Teferi to search up a copy of Fear into the Abyss, which generally just ends the game on the spot. So let's move on to number 7, Vivien Monsters Advocate. This is a powerful resource engine, which can both make a lot of 3/3 beast tokens, which can get one of 3 specific keywords, which can be chosen at your discretion. It's a future sight for creatures, meaning you can cast creatures from the top of your deck, which is very powerful if you have a very creature-heavy deck. And Vivien's -2 can be used to tutor up combo pieces or other relevant creatures with low CMC, such as Dockside, Sylvan Safekeeper, or Esper Sentinel. Moving on to number 6, we have Narset the Parter of Veils. This is an incredibly powerful stacks piece which prevents your opponents from drawing more than 1 card each turn. Also works as a pseudo-win con with wheels by forcing your opponents to discard pretty much their entire hand, and then they only get to draw 1 card afterwards, while you get to draw all of the cards from the wheel. The -2 is also pretty good as long as you have a high enough density of non-creature spells in your deck, but the one problem is people will target this card like nobody's business. The second one Narset hits the field, people will try to kill it. So you either have to be able to protect it or resolve a wheel really fast with this. Up next with number 5, we have Grist the Hungertide. It's a very easy to search planeswalker, and it's a clean way to out a lot of problematic creatures or planeswalkers. Grist, after being used as a removal spell, can then be converted into a resource engine by producing insect tokens and by being able to give yourself a little bit of self-mill. And afterwards, the tokens that Grist produced can then be continued to use to sack to the -2 effect over and over again. Overall, very powerful card, and what really pushes this card to being really playable is the fact that it's searchable via creature tutors, with the fact that it's not considered only a planeswalker when anywhere but your field. Up next we have number 4, Oko the Thief of Crowns. Yeah, this one is busted pretty much everywhere that you can play it. So what Oko can do is that he can elk the most relevant permanents on board every single turn. So if you see one thing that seems to be a problem, just elk it. And another plus to this card is that its +2 can be used to flood the board with food tokens, which can either be sacrificed to gain you life if you need it, or be used to be turned into elks, or from some other synergy that cares about tokens. And sometimes Oko's ult can take an opponent's commander if you really feel like it. Moving on to the big leagues, we have number 3, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. It's a resource engine that doubles up as a win con, whether that be in deep draw lists or in consultation combos. The ability to be a lab man is pretty strong. And sometimes that mill effect can sometimes be relevant, whether that be you're playing a mill deck or a competitive breach combo deck. It's just a powerful ability to be able to mill people. And the drawing thing's also nice. It's also a little bit harder to interact with the Jace than a lab mana, but the cost to do so is a little steeper. And it is also able to be used as the lab mana effect in Polytyrant builds. What that last bit is a bit more relevant to just CDH than regular casual. If you're playing Polytyrant in casual, you're doing something wrong. Up next we have number 2, Tezzeret the Seeker. This card is amazing in artifact decks. Tezzeret's most important effect is his -X, which effectively works as a word invention that is sometimes just better in a lot of circumstances. Tezzeret starts at the perfect starting loyalty to search up some of the most important cards to any artifact strategy, whether that be Aetherflux Reservoir, Mystic Forge, or KCI. Another thing is that not just his minus ability is relevant, the +1 can also be an efficient way to replace the mana you initially spent on Tezzeret. So you can hold up interaction after you've cast your Tezzeret to be able to defend him to keep him for later turns. And if that is your intention, Tezzeret can also be used really effectively to play into the long game, because then you can use his -X to search low-cost key artifacts like Soul Ring, Sensei's Divining Top, or Skull Clamp. And finally, moving on to number 1, Teferi the Master of Time. This card is incredibly busted for a commander. It is a very powerful card selection engine that can quickly turn into a time stretch if left unchecked. It also functions as instant speed interaction in the turn you play it, so it doesn't hurt so bad to tap out for it. It is incredibly costed for the kind of effects it has, and it makes Jace the Mind Sculptor look kind of awful by comparison, because Teferi does pretty much everything you'd want a Planeswalker to be able to do in EDH. Well, thanks for watching. If you would, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have an excellent day.